I don't understand the idea of what a lot of teachers have, like, oh my God, we can't tell them about this. They know. They've known for months. What the students have to know is that we also know, and that we know how to use it, and we know how not to be taken advantage of with it.
Hi, hello. My name is Charles Wiles, and I'm the co-CEO, co-founder of Zish, the company behind Quizalize, what a gamified classroom quiz application that hopefully you're all familiar with. Now, today I'm really excited to bring you this webinar on generative AI and the AI revolution and how it is impacting the classroom and teachers and students. I did my PhD in robotics and AI 30 years ago when the very first research was being done into neural networks and deep learning. And 30 years later, it's a tremendously exciting time, a real watershed moment where I like to think everything is really changing. AI is revolutionizing how we live and work, and education is no exception. But the use of AI in education is on the rise, and for very good reason. It has the potential to transform the way we teach and learn. For teachers, AI really can be a game changer. It can save us time, it can streamline administrative tasks, it can personalize the learning experience for every student. It can help us identify knowledge gaps, provide feedback, and assess student progress all in real time. I mean, there's so many things it can do. And teachers are some of the most time-poor people on the planet. We know how stressful it is being a teacher, and these tools can really make a massive difference to saving time and allowing us all to be better educators. Now, one of the most exciting applications of AI in education is through chatbots and virtual assistants like ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT, by its name, you might think is a chat tool, and it kind of is a chat tool, but actually it's far more than that. It was designed as a chat tool, but really it's a tool where you can type in a question or a request, and the AI, the generative AI as it's known, will generate a response for you. And it could be a simple question like, explain to me why 4 is the answer to 2 + 2. Or it could be something much more sophisticated like generate me an article about the French Revolution in the voice of Yoda from Star Wars. I mean, it can do the most incredible things. There are so many different use cases for it. So don't get fooled by the idea that it's all about a chat. It's just the way the user experience is set up, but it is an incredibly versatile and powerful tool. ChatGPT is one tool, but AI is actually much broader than that. AI can do amazing things with data, and some of the things that we're using it at Quizalize for is trying to do things like, well, given what we know about a student's learning history, the quizzes they've done and what we've seen them do through Quizalize, can we recommend the very best learning resource that will help accelerate their progress, and do that using AI and data, by knowing what has impacted thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other students? Can we predict what the best resource is for that student to help them progress further? Now, we know that a lot of you are a little bit apprehensive about using AI. ChatGPT has had its negative, naysayers saying that this is a bad tool. But I think as we go through this webinar, I think you'll get the idea just how powerful AI is and ChatGPT is as a tool for good, a tool that can help you save time in the classroom and help you be more creative, and your students be more creative, and that ultimately help all of your students progress faster and further than they would otherwise. It's super exciting. With the right tools and training, you can learn to leverage AI to your advantage. We've got some really exciting stuff to talk about, and to give you more insights, I've got an amazing teacher to talk to you today, Richard Perry, who has been in the classroom for 25 years and is a passionate advocate about technology in the classroom in general, but particularly about AI tools. He is an English language arts teacher from New York, and he's here to share his experiences using AI to improve teaching both in and out of the classroom. Let me start then. So to give you all more insights, I want to introduce you to someone who has been inside the classroom for the past 25 years and is a really passionate advocate for the use of AI tools. Richard Perry. He's an English language arts teacher from New York, and he's here to share his experiences of using AI to improve teaching in and outside the classroom. So yes, Richard, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yeah, so my name is Richard Perry. I've been teaching ELA or English Language Arts in New York for 25 years, specifically on Long Island. We have been thrown into ChatGPT this year for the first time also, but I'm very big on technology in the classroom. So in my ELA classroom, we do coding, we do robotics, we have been doing vlogging and video. So I'm not really, technology is sort of like one of the backbones of my classroom to help excite the kids about the literature, because they're not always the most excited audience in the world when you give them something like The Great Gatsby or something like that, and they're going to want a little bit more. And ChatGPT has been sort of the tool of the moment, if you will, this year. What it is basically, and it's perfect. It's the first technology that seems to be designed for the English classroom. But what's nice is that it's not limited to the English classroom. So you're talking about an AI that is a language AI model. So everything that it's built to do is essentially deal with language. And the nice thing is it's not limited to English. So whatever language that you want to feed into chat will respond in that language or translate or do whatever you need it to do, as long as you're dealing with that idea of written spoken language. And it's really good to go for all of those things.
I mean, it's interesting because usually the sort of teachers who use technology in the classroom, I think, maths teachers or science teachers and things like that. But actually ChatGPT is all about language, isn't it? So
It
in
is.
many ways, it is the perfect tool for the English language arts teacher to be using in the classroom.
And it has been. It's very funny. Most of the other things that I use in my classroom, I'm adapting to what I needed to do in the classroom to simulate, to make it more exciting for the students. This was really designed to help the people who are using it. In my case, I'm just going to say teachers. It's really designed to help teachers with all of those aspects of language that you could possibly need. Now, is it going to suddenly replace an English teacher? No, it's not. And that seems to be the big fear, like, oh my God, this is gonna, it's gonna be able to do all of this stuff, and then, we won't be able to teach writing traditionally. It's just not true. Thus far, it has been a really nice supplement for what I'm trying to do in my classroom. Specifically, I mean, I can split it into two things. ChatGPT is fantastic for dealing with some of your administrative tasks that are, troublesome. If you need to set up a rubric, you can feed in the ideas that you need covered, and it will design a basic rubric for you. You guys are using it for making tests and quizzes, and it will help you with tests and quizzes. If you need to translate, and I've been seeing this a lot in New York, it's the English as a second language classes, which also they're doing literature. So we're using it to translate through, from English to a dozen different languages. And it's not something that is limited in its translation skills. It actually can translate and give some nuance and some turn of phrase and stay accurate to the text. So, when you're talking about it from an administrative standpoint, as far as teachers go, if you need to, or you've come up with something and you want it proofread quickly, it's dynamite. Because I hate to admit it, but it seems like no matter how many times I proofread something, I miss something. And I know, like, with my writing, what I need to do is I need to let the writing rest and come back to it, or I see what I want to see on the page and I don't see what's actually there. Chat has actually helped me avoid that type of stuff by being able to write something, proof it, and then it's a second set of eyes to go through it. Again, rubrics, it's fantastic for that. The other thing that's great is if I come across a moment of writer's block, with how I want to present a concept to the students, I can ask it, give me 12 different questions about, and I'll feed it a couple of literary analysis terms regarding, let's say, Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. And it'll throw out ideas. No matter what, it may throw out 9 ideas that don't work, but there'll be something there that I can build from. So it's been one of those things where instead of sitting there on a Sunday, getting ready to teach the next day, sort of like banging my head against the keyboard, trying to figure out like the question that I want to ask, it'll actually give me a little bit of inspiration. So from an administrative standpoint, as far as doing those administrative tasks in school, it's been a lifesaver this year. So
I mean, I think it's amazing, really, isn't it, that the first time you use ChatGPT, you've probably heard about it being used in one particular use case. You've been talking about Rubik's, you've been talking about using it for proofreading. You think, okay, well, I'll give it a go for that. And then as you start to use it, you think you suddenly go to yourself, I wonder if it could do this. And you try it. And it works, doesn't it, quite often? It often does a really good job. I mean, like, we've been using it for creating quizzes automatically for teachers. And then we said, well, could it also automatically create explanations for the answers as well, right? So we just tried it and it works, right? Sometimes it does a better job than others, but you come up with the more you use it, the more ways you come up with of ways you can use it. And it is such a massive, as you say, I think there are 2 categories. There's the time-saving stuff that it does, right? You can think of it as having a personal assistant, can't you? Your own personal assistant who, if you would give like proofreading as a task you'd give to your personal assistant, isn't it, right? Well, if it's a task you give to a smart person, you give it. And then the creative side of stuff. It is wonderfully creative. I mean, I like to think of myself as a bit of an amateur poet. So I'm an awful poet, but I like to think of myself. But some of the stuff that that ChatGPT can come up with is incredible, isn't it? Really.
Well, it's funny. This week, we're getting ready for the standardized tests in New York. It's the end of June, so the kids are going through the prep work, and I have to say it's sort of monotonous. It really is. So I give the kids their feedback, and what I've been doing, and this is sort of that idea of the creativity aspect of it. In my head when I'm writing the responses to the students' essays, I'm always like, hey, how would this sound if it was in someone else's voice? So I've been actually having ChatGPT take my feedback on the essays and give me that feedback written in someone else's voice. And if the students can identify it, they can get some extra credit. So sometimes it'll be Hagrid from Harry Potter has been very popular with the kids. But I mean, no less popular, I've thrown in some authors that we've used. So, give me this, give me this feedback as though it was written by Harper Lee, the author of To Kill a Mockingbird. And it does a reasonable job on doing that. And the kids seem a little bit more attached to that type of feedback because instead of reading, you need to add another explanation, you need to develop the idea, you can hear the voice of that character. Now, could I do this on my own? Probably, if I had weeks and weeks of time to do it on my own. If I do it with ChatGPT at this point, you're talking about seconds. Seconds to make a very tedious classroom task, like constantly reviewing for a final exam, a little bit more enjoyable and keeping the kids invested in it. So I like to think of it as I'm a big Star Trek fan, particularly the original Star Trek. And I always loved when Kirk would ask the computer a question and the computer would come back with the exact answer. And that's what ChatGPT reminds me of, because one of the unexpected benefits, I mean, I've been teaching 25 years, so I've been asking literally hundreds of questions a week for 25 years. So I think my questioning skill is pretty good. But with chat, it gives you exactly what you ask for. And so it's teaching teachers to constantly refine their questioning techniques also, which I have to tell you, I think that's one of the most valuable things that you get from chat, is that you're constantly refining your ability to ask effective questions just to get the feedback that you're looking at. I know that's a little off the idea of creativity, but I've noticed my questions this year become more succinct, more concise, and definitely a little bit more it's a poor term for this, but a little more surgical in what I'm looking for when it comes to actually asking questions of the kids and of my colleagues. And it's funny because ChatGPT, when we first heard about it, and this sounds so crazy, but we first talked about it in my school in February. And the immediate response was no. Like that was the response, like, no, this is bad. This is going to destroy, writing in the classroom and this and that and the other thing. And since we have been exploring it, it's done nothing but add layers of creativity to the
I
classroom.
mean, I think it's a bit like it's like a calculator. I'm sure when a calculator was first invented, teachers went, "Oh no, this is going to make everybody cheat at maths. They're using calculators now." But it is just a tool, isn't it, that allows people to do it. We'd never say to a student, "No, you must never use a calculator in real life because you need to know how to add up." Yes, of course you need to know how to add up, but it's a tool in real life that makes you more accurate and more efficient. And it's important that students are armed with these tools in real life. ChatGPT and other tools like this are part of the present and very much part of the future. We'll all be using them every day in the future. And it's important that, our young people learn how to use these in good and powerful ways to be creative, to be more efficient, and to, ultimately be more productive.
Well, yeah, I agree with you entirely. Because one of the first things I did with it was actually a writing assignment. And that was the big fear was, oh, okay, the kids are going to cheat. So I had the students write their essays in class by hand. Afterwards, I had them take the essay home and type it up into a Google Doc and then feed it into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT for feedback on their essay, and then bring the printed feedback in and their printed essay. And we started essentially almost like a dissertation defense. Tell me why the AI feels this way and what you can do to make your writing better. And it's almost been like having, like you said earlier, an assistant in the classroom with another perspective. And quite honestly, the kids were sort of annoyed with the feedback they got with ChatGPT because they were like, well, a machine's going to tell me this. And suddenly they became very much invested in what they were writing and then invested in defending what they were writing, while at the same time looking at what chat was saying and saying, okay, I can understand this, but at the same time, it's not conveying the voice that I want to convey. And it's actually saying my voice is wrong. And, that's the other thing that I think everybody is worried about, is that it's going to replace human writers. It doesn't have that sense of voice in it. It doesn't have that sort of, it's going to sound so cheesy, but like human spark. You can ask it to write a book. You're going to be able to tell that it's an AI book. At least I think you can. And the other thing is, just as a little hint to any of the teachers out there who are worried about cheating, if a student submits an essay to you and you cut and paste it into ChatGPT and ask it if it was written by ChatGPT, ChatGPT will tell you that the essay was written by the AI. And that's a new feature that's only come up in, I want to say, like the last 2 or 3 weeks, which gives you an idea of how rapidly this thing is evolving. But I had a student who submitted a piece, and I didn't think it sounded like that student. And while we were talking, I was submitting it to ChatGPT and asking it, "Did you write this?" And it was like, it actually came back with the feedback. Yes, this was created by ChatGPT, but ChatGPT did not agree with the writer's opinion. And so, like, it's not something that I think people have to worry about. It's not the end all be all of cheating tools that everyone's worried about. It is just another tool. And, that analogy you made earlier about the calculator, think also about the kids with learning disabilities. This is a wonderful tool for changing lexile levels of what you're reading, making pieces more accessible to students who do have learning disabilities or particular learning styles or needs. So, yes, worst case scenario, a student could put a question in there and have an essay written for them, but we all know our students. You're going to know what your student sounds like. And if suddenly your student comes in and their paper reads like Faulkner, you're going to put it in there and you're going to realize, and you'll be able to have that conversation, which I also think is sort of effective is to have that conversation about what the ethics of it is, and how this is cheating, especially with the younger kids. And that's something that I've really been focusing on lately. The other thing is, I don't understand the idea of what a lot of teachers have, like, oh my God, we can't tell them about this. They know. They've known for months. What the students have to know is that we also know, and that we know how to use it, and we know how not to be taken advantage of with it. And I think our expertise in using it is going to be very important in the future in directing the students to use it correctly as a supportive tool. I mean, at least in New York, the kids can program their calculators to play video games. That's not an effective use of.
I didn't actually know, Richard, you were a big Star Trek fan. So am I. And it's probably a bit too deep to go into the Kobayashi Maru no-win scenario and how Captain Kirk beat that, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
was that cheating or was it not? Was that creativity? Who knows? But yes, I think that's a discussion for another time, isn't it?
But I mean, that's the thing, for everyone who's like, we have to hide it from the kids. It's too late. This had to be, if you were gonna stop this had to be stopped months ago, probably years ago. As of now, it's there. It's a tool, and teachers can hide their heads in the sand and try to ignore it, or they can embrace it and incorporate it into their classroom in whatever way they're comfortable. And that's really, like, this summer is going to be, for me, the summer of AI. Like, I want to learn. I want to know the nuances of it. And I'm pretty deep into it now. But I feel like that's one of the things that, we as an educational community have to do, is share those ideas. Like, yeah, everybody that I've showed what I'm using ChatGPT for is like, oh, but can you do this? And then they go and try it, and it turns out, yes, you can, or no, you can't. And if it's no, you can't, how do we adapt it? And if it's yes, you can, okay, and now let's build on that. So it's actually causing a lot of education conversation in a way that I haven't seen in a lot of years. And by a lot of years, I would say the first time cell phones really came into school and we were trying to leverage those for education, this seems much bigger, and it seems like it's going to have that fundamental impact.
For me, it's such an exciting moment. I mean, as I think Richard, I mean, I did my PhD in AI and robotics 30 years ago when the very first research papers in neural networks were coming out. And, really, this is a watershed moment in the journey of AI. I mean, it is perhaps the most exciting time ever. I think that ChatGPT, or, this new class of generative AI products, is exactly as big a moment as the very first smartphones, when the iPhone came out and suddenly, people could create, or even the first web browser, when the first web browser came out and suddenly the internet was born. We are in that moment today. We will look back in 5-10 years time and we'll be sitting there and we're going, do you remember when ChatGPT was launched and everything changed? Because that is where we are, right? In so many ways, it's going to change lives. In some cases for the worse. It is going to have some negative impacts, but 99% of it is going to be positive, right? 99% of it is going to be about how we can do things faster, better, more creatively. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful time really for what's going to happen. I mean, we talked a little bit about the cheating concern. I mean, is there anything else teachers should be concerned about? I mean, do you think there is anything that teachers should worry about? Should they be worried, or is it as good as I say? Is it all good?
I never want to say any technology is all good, because I really don't believe that. I mean, I am a proponent of cell phones in the classroom. I'm very thankful that the parents are willing to spend $1,400 to give their kids a pocketable computer that I can then use in my classroom. But at the same time, if I don't have my students focused on what they're doing when they're on those phones, then they're off on Snapchat, or they're off on Instagram, or some other social media, or a game, or something like that. So, I don't think it's 100%, good. I'm sure that, there is a student out there who's, figuring out some nefarious use for it in the classroom. But I don't think it's the sort of, cloud of doom that people have talked about it being on the horizon. In fact, for me, the most important thing here has been how much time I save. I mean, I think every teacher I know is under a tremendous amount of stress, and that stress all comes down to the fact that we have such a limited amount of time to get these kids through a tremendous amount of information. So if I can save 5 or 10 minutes here or there, that adds up to a lot more time that I can throw into other things I need to do, like exercising, like taking care of myself a little bit more than I would have otherwise. Like that's the thing. So is it perfect? No. And I want to make this clear for people who are using it. You need to proofread whatever comes out of ChatGPT, not for grammar or spelling or punctuation, but what you do need to look for is the fact that ChatGPT does not understand all the nuances of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate when it comes to actually putting stuff out there. So if you're having it look at a text and that text has language in it that people might find offensive or people might find as hurtful, ChatGPT may well incorporate that into whatever it's producing. And you need to go through and once again put that human touch on it to make sure that it's not giving something that it shouldn't be giving.
And
So,
it can also just get things wrong, can't it? I mean,
oh
we
yeah.
use it in our quiz creator, and it's fantastic. And I don't know, I can't put a percentage on it, but I would say 99% of the time it generates questions which are correct. They give the correct answer for the question. But sometimes it does get wrong. I actually had it generate a quiz the other day where it asked the same question twice and gave two different answers, only one of which was correct. So you do have to check, that it's actually giving you the right answer. It isn't actually intelligent. All it's really doing is applying all this kind of data of natural language and playing it back to you in some clever way, isn't it?
And one of the other pro tips is, especially if it's being used to generate an answer key. I had to generate a quiz the other day, and every answer was A on a 20-question quiz. And I gave it to the class because I thought it was sort of amusing to see how they would react to it. And a few of the kids were like, I got 3 questions wrong because I didn't think a whole quiz would have an A on it. I said, and I mean, this was just a practice quiz, so it wasn't really for a grade that had any impact. But it does have these little quirks, that I find charming sometimes. That it does these silly little mistakes in there, and it might be just. I also find it sort of like reassuring to my ego that it's not perfect. But it does it is something that needs to be proofread. It's always going to need us. It's always going to need the people behind it to go through it and make sure that it has the right information. But
I
I'll
guess.
tell you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just going to say it's just like a Google search results or a Wikipedia page. Ultimately, most of the time that's correct, but it's not always, right?
And it's pulling from so many different sources that sometimes, I mean, it's not often, but sometimes the information is incorrect or out of date. So, like if you're looking for current event stuff, I think currently on the website, it says that anything past 2021, it may be inaccurate to an extent. So, like you do have to watch out for that as you go through. But, I would be proofreading my own material anyway. So it's still saving me a tremendous amount of time. And, the one other thing is, especially for my classes, when I'm teaching them literature, the books don't exist in a vacuum. So I need to teach them all of the supplemental material that goes around it. So if we're reading The Grapes of Wrath, I need to be able to teach them about the Great Depression. And if I don't know everything, I can get a quick summary together. I think I was telling you the last time we spoke that we were teaching an Andy Weir book, and there was a whole bunch in there about what was it? Relativity and time slippage. I'm an English teacher. I am not, a physicist. So I had to have ChatGPT go through and explain how that worked, and it did a reasonably good job on it. So I mean, it's an enormous time saver. Is it? Perfect? No. Is it all good? No. Is it all bad? No. It's a tool. It's going to be as effective as any other tool. It's just right now with the way this tool keeps developing, it's becoming more useful literally by the day. So
yeah, I mean, on the time thing is absolutely right. I asked it to create a quiz on the last Super Bowl the other day, and it was just completely wrong. It obviously had absolutely no idea about what happened in the last Super Bowl. But yes, I had to go to the Wikipedia page and find out how many seconds were left on the clock when that final winning score was made.
Yeah, it's very good, but it's also it's not perfect. I will tell you this, the I finally did break down, and I have the paid subscription, and I tried version 4.0, and it's limited in uses. I think it's like you can ask it 25 questions every 3 hours. It's really amazing how much 4 has developed. And the other thing, it's also amazing how much faster it is than 3.5. It's growing speed wise exponentially. It's really impressive, to the point where, like, I was watching it write the essays before. Now it's I type in the question or whatever I need, and it's just there. As fast as my screen refreshes, it's there.
I mean, we talk about ChatGPT, and ChatGPT definitely is the leader, and hasn't it? And really, which has really been this transformational piece of technology. But it's not the only game in town. I mean, have you tried using Bard or any of the other,
I've tried Bard. In fact, I went to a PD session the other day, and another teacher was talking about Bard, and we were playing with it. It's also good. I think that at the moment, the one that I found most compelling lately was Snapchat's AI. I played with that for a little bit. It's like talking to another person. So, and another person that can be a little bit moody, a little bit difficult to deal with from time to time. So, I mean, there's a lot out there. I mean, and that's just talking about the language parts. If you start getting into the AI artwork, the AI music at this point, it's really impressive, especially the music. For me, I create stuff on YouTube all the time, and I'm constantly searching for music that's copyright free. And the AI music is. So, like, this is going to pervade every piece of creative life that we have
Yeah,
out.
yeah, absolutely right. I mean, we have a new game called Blockers. I don't know if you've seen it, Richard, but it's a Minecraft inspired 3D game. And we had to create the textures for all the blocks. And some of those were created using AI. We said, generate me a repeating texture, and we need it to be repeating so that if you took 2 blocks next to each other, it makes a smooth kind of continuous texture. So repeating texture of ferns in the jungle, for example. And that's one of the ones in there that was AI generated. I mean, it's amazing. It is, as you say, we're creating games and we're using AI to generate the textures in these games.
Well, that's something I'm interested in for next year. The coding aspect of it, because we do coding in my class, but for the most part, we stick to block coding. We use Sphero robots, so they're little robotic balls. But I'm sort of interested to look at the AI coding as well and how that'll work here. So, I mean, if you think about it, like what we've just talked about as far as AI goes, like we're talking about art, we're talking about music, we're talking about language, we're talking about coding. I've never asked it a math question because I haven't had one that, that was that complex. I have asked it science questions. I have friends who teach science who are using it in science class sometimes to discuss phenomena. It's really, I mean, I think it was built for me as an ELA teacher, but I have to tell you the truth. It is so far reaching in what it can do. And really its implication for education to me is that it's going to allow us to give ourselves more time, and that will allow us to spend more time with the students and focus on the individual needs instead of, trying to cope with, the class needs. We can cope with the students' needs. And that to me is a big deal. So
that's super exciting, isn't it? I mean, that is the whole raison d'etre, part of my French, for Quizalize, our core product. The whole idea was, how can we give teachers the superpowers to personalize their teaching to every student? And of course, we don't really use any AI in it. It's all about how to use, a quiz, a fun classroom quiz game to capture data and give teacher that insight for using real time in the classroom. But I absolutely agree with you. We are going to be given the ability for teachers to do a lot more personalized help in the classroom, being able to understand exactly, who's struggling with what, I mean, you know, and have the time to do something about it. And that is tremendously exciting, isn't it? You know, because that's what we all want as educators. You know, I mean, I'm not a teacher, but I'm a technologist, but what we want is to be able to help students succeed. That's what gets me out of bed every morning. You
Yeah,
know, what
and this will amplify our ability to do that. I really do. So, I guess that earlier question you asked, like, do I see a lot of, all good in this? Overall, yeah, I think it's going to be very good for doing just that, giving us the time to reach our kids, even when our class sizes are not ideal. For me, my average class size is about 25. Depending on where you teach in the United States, I've seen classes go all the way up into the mid 30s. That's a lot of.
we do a lot of work in the Philippines, and a typical secondary school teacher there teaches 10 classes of 50 students every week. Can you
Yeah,
imagine?
so I mean I mean, how do you personalize the education for those students without some sort of help? And I mean, this is help, and this is help that's not costing anything, which to me is a big deal. Like, classroom technology is normally expensive, and this has been just like somebody gave me the gift this year. Like, here you go.
I mean, Richard, you thank you so much for all that insight. Any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience?
The best thing that everybody can do is set up an account in ChatGPT and play with it. Like I said, when I went into it sort of like, oh, this can't be great. I must admit, I was a little bit sort of skeptical about how you could use it in the classroom. But the more you get in there and explore, and I mean, we always talk about this for our students, like, play is a great way of teaching and a great way for people to learn. Well, it applies to us also. I mean, I've had it rewrite song lyrics to some of my favorite songs to go with the music. I've had it write silly poetry, like you were talking about. I've had it do comments in the name, in the voice of other people. I recommend go in there and just start asking it questions, and see what it gives you. And as that happens, as you get used to what it does, it's only going to spark more questions and more interesting, sort of paths to follow. I mean, I hate to admit it, I've lost hours. I've sat down and I've been like, I'll spend like 15 minutes seeing what this can do, and suddenly I look up and it's 2 hours later. But I have a tremendous amount of material that I can then go and use and change, and ideas for the classroom. So, the best bet is go and play with it, like, and don't listen to the naysayers until you see it for yourself. It seems like the knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people is, this is bad, this is new, this can't come into the classroom. And I don't think a lot of those people go out there and actually try it out first. And that's sort of the thing. Listen, when a piece of technology is bad for the classroom, I will be the first one to tell people that, but I will go and I will play with that technology first. And I will sit there and say, okay, no, this is not something I want in my classroom. Play with it, see how it goes for you. And for some people, it's going to be wonderful. And for other people, it's just not going to fit. But that's really what it comes down to, is go out there and try it for yourself.
Well, look, thank you, Richard. I mean, you are a innovator, you are a thought leader. And I'm sure everybody really appreciates you sharing that. I expect everybody's super excited now to go out and try it if they haven't tried it already. And we are just on the cusp. We're still at ground zero with this technology, aren't we, really? I mean, it's going to keep getting better and change in all sorts of wonderful ways. If Richard is absolutely amazing. I mean, he has so many thoughts, so many things. A great teacher, a great leader. So do follow Richard. His Twitter account is rperry209, rperry209. Richard's one of these people that I love to follow, because I learn a lot from you all the time, Richard. So thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Oh, my pleasure. So glad I could spread the word, to tell you the truth. So
now I'd like to give you a demonstration of how we at Quizalize are using ChatGPT to save teachers time creating quizzes. In fact, you can use ChatGPT to create a quiz in seconds. rather than the many minutes that you might be taking today to create quizzes. We'll start by going straight to quizalize.com, typing it in the browser there, and all you need to do is click on Teachers Start Here. It's free. Now you'll be then given the option to sign up in various ways. You can sign up with just your email and a password if you want to. If you are a Google Classroom teacher, I definitely recommend using the sign up Google Classroom, because if you do that, you'll be able to then later assign quizzes to your class in using Google Classroom, and they will appear in the students' Google Classroom feed, and also their quiz results will go back into your gradebook, but you can sign up in any way you like. I've already signed up, so I'm going to just log in. Now, you can launch our ChatGPT quiz creator on the right here with the instant question bank, but teachers have been liking this so much, we decided let's just make it part of the main UI. So you can actually just go to the main search box and type something here. So let's type in American Civil War. So as you can see here, it's thrown up a bunch of quizzes that other teachers have created about the American Civil War. Lots of amazing quizzes here. But on the right, we've already automatically launched our ChatGPT based question bank creator. So this is creating questions not from the quizzes that other teachers have already created about this. This is just creating questions about this, using its own database of knowledge from natural English language. It's absolutely fantastic. As you can see, it's generating these questions in real time. Now, if we want to create a quiz using these questions, using this question bank, in fact, all we need to do is click on one of them, and it'll throw up our quick quiz creator. So we've got the question bank on the right here, and the quiz we're creating on the left. Which battle marked the turning point of the American Civil War? The Battle of Gettysburg. I'm no expert in the American Civil War, but assume that's correct, we can add that to our quiz. What was the Union's Army's main strength? Let's have a look at that question. Strategy during the American Civil War, the Anaconda Plan. Yeah, I like that question. Let me add that too. And I can go through each of these questions, deciding which ones I want to add to my quiz. Now, I can actually quite often retype in the same query or a slightly different one. Maybe I want to find out some questions about the Emancipation Proclamation. So if I type in Emancipation Proclamation and do go, it's now going to think up questions specifically about that kind of little sub area there, and generate me questions on that now, and I can add them to my existing quiz. So like, maybe I want to know, test my students on what year the Emancipation Proclamation was issued, so let's add that question as well. And did it immediately free all enslaved people? It didn't. Let's add that one as well. So I've now created my quiz here. Fantastic. And I can keep doing that, putting in new queries, researching the same query. Quite often, if you put the same query in twice, it will actually generate quite different answers for you. So that's a really good little tip there. But once I've created it, I can either export it as a Google form. In fact, we're adding more exporters. We want you to be able to export it for any product. We think it's such a fantastically useful tool. Why limit it just to Quizalize? But you can export it to Google Forms. A lot of our teachers like to use both Quizalize and Google Forms for the more serious quizzes. Quizalize for the more fun, in-classroom formative stuff. But you can export it as a Google form. I'm not going to do it now. I'm just going to do play or edit in Quizalize. So here, when you play or edit, it's saved, and we've gone to the quiz preview page where we can now assign it to our class. But of course, and we can preview the quiz questions here ourselves, but maybe we want to edit those questions first before we give it to class. Maybe we want to add some more questions ourselves, so we can go to the Quizalize quiz editor. All right, all these questions are there already. We could add our own new questions there, or perhaps we want to change the nature of this question. It's automatically been generated as a multiple choice, but maybe we want to change it to a type and answer question, or even a scrambled letter question. I particularly like scrambled letter questions, so here I've changed it to a scrambled letter question, and let's preview this quiz before we give it to our students. So great, yes, bit of a difficult scrambled letter questions, but which battle marked the turning point of the American Civil War, and we could start filling in that answer there, using the scrambled letter question. So that gives you a very quick summary of how to use the Quizalize quiz editor and AI chat GPT question bank creator. I hope you enjoyed that. And so yes, that was a quick demo of how to use ChatGPT to help you create quizzes in seconds rather than in many minutes. And I think that's really transformative. It's not just a time saver if you think about it. Not only does it mean that you can generate your quizzes much quicker, but it also changes the way you can now use things, products like Quizalize, much more opportunistically. If you finish your class 10 minutes early, you now know that you can create a quiz in a minute and play it as a fun classroom quiz game at the end of the class. You don't have to have pre-planned it anymore. And I think that's really exciting too. It transforms the way you can use applications like Quizalize in the classroom. Yes, why don't you give it a quick demo now? Go to quizalize.com and try and create your own quiz. And if you create it, I'd love to see what you've come up with. You can always tweet me, Charles Wiles on Twitter, or send us an email. You can contact us at any time on support@quizalize.com. Or you can use, if you log into Quizalize, you can use the on-site chat, and we try to get back to you very quickly. Thank you again for listening to a webinar. I hope you're as excited as we are about the future of AI and how it's going to transform teaching and learning.